Greetings everybody and welcome to the Day 6 review. In the Day 6 review, I'll go over my footage from the last 6 days of the game we've been playing and give a short synopsis of how each of those days went. I will do one of these reviews after playing every 6 days. I know there are people that do not have time to watch a 2 to 4 hour playthrough of a game. So this would be something that they could watch if they were interested in the playthrough, but did not have that time to sit through that lengthy video. It also gives me a day to reflect on everything and more time to plan on the game that we're playing. To start off each review, we'll go down a short list of basic information for that day, then follow that up with areas where we can get better, while also looking at things that we might have done right on that day. And then finally, after we've gone over each day, we'll make a plan on how to get better. Now, I did include days 1 and 2 together, simply because a lot of the issues that I had in day 1 extended over into day 2, and a lot of that was from the fact that these were my first set of runs. In day 1, it took me 3 hours and 9 minutes to beat the game with 16 deaths, while in day 2 it took me a lot longer at 4 hours and 2 minutes, but with only 6 deaths. I found that a lot of the issues that I had with the run came from absolutely no planning. When I went into the runs on both day 1 and day 2, I didn't have any overarching plan on what to do. It was just taking everything as it came and not writing any information down and simply just relying on my intuition and the memory of where things are and where things were. And a lot of that didn't pan out very well because I spent a lot of time running around. I spent a lot of time backtracking. There was a lot of confusion as to where everything was, and that caused a lot more problems than it would have if I would have just had an actual plan going in, as well as using the different tools that I had at my disposal. A lot of first runs are always going to be your difficult runs because it's the first time you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. So you're not going to be aware of all the little things that are going to kind of creep up whenever you're playing or whenever you're doing whatever it is you're doing. So it's always going to be a little bit of an issue your first couple times at doing something, but hopefully after those first couple times you'll start to pick up on everything, and that's what we're trying to do here. On day 3, we were able to improve our time a little bit to 2 hours and 54 minutes with 21 deaths. That was a lot of deaths, and those deaths that I had came from me trying to brute force my way through levels, and in general just being careless when taking damage. Next, we had a lot of time spent clearing screens of monsters when there was really no good reason to. There was a lot of overworld maps and a lot of dungeon screens where I should have just skipped the entire screen altogether or ran around the monsters because the drop was already viewable inside of the room. I also spent a large amount of time attempting speedrun tricks when doing the normal way would have saved more time. This does become a bit of a common theme. There are some areas where attempting to do things like screen scrolling are necessary, such as the areas north of level 1 where you can screen scroll to access the graveyard and Death Mountain without needing to get the ladder. I did have a bit more of a plan when going into this run, and it does show a bit with the time. Although there were points where I deviated from the plan, I did at least attempt to follow through with it. I also used ZHelper to track where I found levels, which made planning where to go next a lot simpler. Day 4 was the best day we had this week. We were able to beat the game in 1 hour and 56 minutes with only 10 deaths. Even though it was the best day that we had this week, there still were some issues that we can patch up. One of those big issues was the same as day 3, and that was the unnecessary killing of monsters. So we were clearing too many screens in dungeons and clearing too many screens in the overworld, and that costed us a lot of time. On top of that, there was also the failed speedrun tricks where we were attempting to do different screen scrolls and different block clips and not getting the mileage that we should have gotten out of them, which would have made for an even better time. However, it was a very solid run still time-wise, and I believe a lot of that came from the fact that there was a lot more planning and a lot more following through with the plan. So instead of attempting to deviate from the plan, I tried to more consistently execute on it and follow through with it. So even if I died, I'd try and get back to where I was so that I can continue going on and gathering the information. And I think that definitely helped. On top of that, there was a lot more use of up A inside of dungeons and in the overworld to kind of warp around a lot quicker. So that also helped very well with that day. Day 5 was another really good day for us. We were able to beat the game in 2 hours and 18 minutes with a total of only 6 deaths. It was the second best day that we actually had this week. However, there were some issues that kind of stuck out while I was watching the playthrough, and one of the big ones was wasted time running around. I did notice that I spent a lot of time running around different levels and kind of running around the overworld map and not really doing anything productive or, moving forward trying to actually beat the game. And I think a lot of that stemmed from not using the map tool properly. I was only simply putting the levels that I had discovered on the map, and I wasn't really putting anything else there. And the map tool itself does have the ability to put different types of shops, so I can mark where I can buy bombs or I can mark where I buy arrows down to make it easier to go back to those locations whenever I need those items. Speaking of needing items, I did buy some unnecessary items on that run. There was a part where I went through and bought arrows when I should have saved that money for the arrows and instead bought a key that would allow me to access the next area in a level. So I do need to kind of rethink what items I really need and what items I don't need. And if I don't need an item at that particular point in time, then I should be skipping that item and getting items that I do need. One of the other things that I also need to work on would be keeping track of the dungeon items. There are a certain set of items that each dungeon will drop. As an example, level 1 has one ground drop that would be an item, and then another ground drop that would normally be for a heart. But you can get 2 different items on the ground, which requires you to kill all the monsters in the room, as well as one staircase item. So you have to go down the staircase to get the item in level 1. That means that level 1 would have a grand total of 3 different items, and the need to keep track of those items and like how many you got in the level is definitely something that I need to work on. But one of the good things about the day 5 was that I was doing some speedrun tricks and actually getting them a lot faster than I was in the previous days, and it might have just been because I'd been practicing them. But that was one of the good things that we did have on that day. Day 6, we did have a bit of regression. It did take us a little bit longer to actually beat the game. We beat it in 2 hours and 59 minutes, so just shy of 3 hours. And we had 13 deaths on that particular run. I believe a lot of the issues from that particular run stemmed from wasted time running around. I didn't check level 2 when I thought I did, and that caused me to spend a lot of time second guessing whether or not I went to a location. So I spent a bunch of time running around. On top of that, I did exactly the same thing I'd been doing the past couple days, and that was unnecessary killing of monsters in the overworld as well as in dungeons. So that's another issue that I'm going to have to address. I also didn't keep too good of a track of items that were inside of dungeons. So I do need to have a plan for that as well, to get just a little bit better at learning how many items drop in each dungeon and how they drop in those dungeons. We did do some things a little bit better though, and that was our speedrun tricks were getting a little bit better. So I was getting better at doing the actual screen scrolling to get from point A to point B a little bit quicker, as well as the block clipping. And I also did the same thing I did the day before as well, and that was using more up A on the second controller to reset back to the beginning of a dungeon or back to the starting area on the overworld map. And finally, we come to the end. What we're going to do here is see about setting forth a plan to get better at playing the game. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're not killing monsters needlessly, and that we're killing them for an actual reason, whether we need the items the monster drops, or if we're clearing them out so that we can get a floor drop in a dungeon. Like I said before, I did notice on a lot of days I was just pointlessly killing monsters on a screen just to kill all the monsters on the screen. And we don't want to do that. We want to see about bypassing those monsters if we can, and only killing them when we absolutely have to. The second thing that we're going to want to do is see about exploring the world a little bit better or faster. In the previous day on day 6, as I said before, I didn't check level 2, and level 2 ended up being a key area that I needed to explore that I never did. So I can't let powerful enemies such as Wizrobes or Lionels deter me from actually exploring that area on the map, even though I could potentially die, as well as combining the different exploration elements a little better. Whenever you get items like the candle or you get items like the bomb, it does open up a lot more of the overworld to explore. So I want to make sure that when I'm exploring the world and I get those drops or I find those items, that I'm combining that exploration a bit better. One of the other things was keeping better track of the dungeon items. I do have a little list that I created of the types of items that drop in the dungeons. For instance, as I said before, with level 1, there are 2 different floor drops and 1 stair drop. Normally in level 1, there's a boomerang on the floor and a heart on the floor, and then a bow inside of the staircase. The randomizer does count the heart on the floor as an item drop, so the floor drop could potentially be anything. So I could kill all the monsters in a room, and instead of it dropping a heart, it could drop something else that I desperately need, such as the ladder, or it could drop a raft, or it could drop the bow, or it could drop, like it normally drops a heart. So keeping better track of what items have been dropped already in a dungeon and when to just leave the dungeon because I've already got all the drops, and then collecting the Triforce is something that I definitely need to work on. The other thing was practicing doing the speed run tricks a little bit before the runs. There is a ROM that I have. It's called the Buffett ROM for classic Zelda, and it gives you a lot of information to help with doing the different speedrun tricks such as screen scrolling and block clipping, and it has access to a number of other little things, but the good part about it is it shows you when you should be able to clip and when you can't. So getting used to using that a little bit before I do the runs will definitely help out and get me warmed up so that way whenever I go to do the run, I'll be a little bit more ready to do those tricks. And with all that said and done, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Hopefully this particular video inspires you to maybe watch some of the other runs, and if not, that's alright too. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe you got some information from it to help you out. Anyway, I hope you have a great morning, afternoon, evening, whether you're just getting up. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you're going to take a nap, I hope you have a great night. Anyway, take it easy. Later.